and welcome to a very special edition of Resource Review. On today's programme, we're evaluating resources for pupils with learning and behavioural special educational needs. We're also breaking with tradition and looking at resources at primary and secondary level in the one programme. So let's begin with primary special educational needs. The three resources that we're looking at today include a literacy series, a CD-ROM of maths games, and a behavioural scheme on CD. Recommending today's primary resources, we have Dr. Rona Tutt, SEN consultant for the National Association of Head Teachers and herself former head of a special school. On the panel today we have Maria Pierides, Senko at Manoside School in the London Borough of Barnet, and Adrienne Jones, an independent education consultant. And for once, we've released Matthew Tosh, our resident ICT expert, from his test lab and sent him out into schools to look at the resources in action. Well, Rona, your first choice of resource for us today is called the Rapid series.
That's right.
We've got a lot of it out on the desk here. It's all these books as well as a CD-ROM. Explain this resource to us and what you like about it.
I think this is a very carefully worked out resource. And they've created some very imaginative material for children who found it difficult to really get off the ground with reading. This has a reading age that will take them from about 5.5 to an 8+ reading age, but the interest level is higher. They have managed to balance having an interesting storyline with having the repetition that children who are slow to pick up reading actually need. There's a teacher's guide. And in here, as well as giving you some ideas about how to operate the books, they also have pages where there are materials to go alongside the books.
And there's also an ICT element to the resource as well.
There is an ICT element, and this is one of the things that is really very motivating for children with special educational needs. They can actually record their own voice. They can then hear that recording, and each time they can try and improve on their previous performance.
Well, we sent Matthew Tosh over to Milton Hall Primary School in Westcliff-on-Sea to check out the Rapid series in use, and we join him in a quiet corner of the staff room.
Well, here I am at the school, and I have to tell you, the Rapid series is absolutely enormous. There's lots of books here, and you can order anywhere between one and the entire set. In addition to that, there's a CD-ROM, and this is what I'm going to focus on today. And there are two modes of operation. It can either read to you, or it can listen to your own reading and analyse how you're doing. So let's have a look at the Read to Me facility.
Tom was on his old skateboard.
If there's a particular word that's causing difficulty to a pupil, you can just click on that word and the programme will read it out.
Skateboard.
Now the really nifty bit is the read and record. And when you first install the software, you have to speak to it and it will listen to your voice and analyse your accent to get used to it. Well, I've already done that, so all I need to do is to put the headset on and have a go. But when I do it, I'm going to pretend I get stuck on the word wheel. So have a listen to see what happens. "Oh no," cried Tom. "A
wheel
has come off." Well, you've seen it in operation. I'm off now to see Sally Carter with her class. She's using the books and the software.
So read on and see if first makes sense.
People.
So would that be first? Does that make sense? No. Try again then. So how do these dogs?
Fins.
It's a lovely working atmosphere. I'm interested in the lesson structure, how you've managed to use the resource in your lesson today.
Well, basically we're doing like a group guided reading session which could be done in the classroom, but we've just chosen to extract the children and do it in our learning support unit today. So far we've found they are a really, really good resource to have. The stories are nice and colourful and bright and interesting, and then at the end of it they have a quiz, so the children think it's something fun but you're actually checking their comprehension.
There is a teacher's guide that comes with it. Have you found that useful?
The teacher's guide is really useful because it does actually give you the lesson focus that you can set at the beginning.
Right.
The reading resource on the computer is a really nice strategy for children to self-correct themselves. It's almost a kind of personalised learning.
Do you think the children are getting something out of using this resource?
Yep, I really think it's helping them with their learning. They're feeling more confident because it's got the introduction page and it's giving them the tricky words. It's helping them with their reading skills, their questioning skills, and they're really enthusiastic when they're using the books.
But it is quite an expensive resource.
It is expensive, but I think it is well worth it because it can be used for so many different children. You know, it can be used for a group guided reading session. It can also be used with special educational needs children and also children with English as an additional language. So it's well worth a good resource to have in school.
Excellent.
Now, Maria, you've had a chance to review the Rapid series. What do you make of it?
Well, we really enjoyed using it in school. I worked with a group of children and with individual children using the books. The children enjoyed doing the quiz at the end.
Good.
Also, I liked the introduction. So for every story in the book, be it non-fiction or fiction, there was a little introduction. The children were introduced to the tricky words, which was great. So they were able to focus on those before they started reading the text. The combination of the fiction and the non-fiction together in the one book is a real bonus as well. And the reading assistant was excellent. The only thing I would say was that you have to be in a very quiet space to use the reading assistant. When I first used it, I was in the computer suite and we had the hum of other computers and it couldn't hear the child, it couldn't pick up the child's voice.
Adrienne, what are your thoughts?
I particularly like the whole resource, the colours, the design, the layout.
Any things you didn't like?
In the storybooks, the text is a great size. You know, haha, said Sir Crusher. But actually, when you just look on a laptop screen, this text is actually quite small compared to the text size in the book.
Well, thank you all. Now it's time to move on to Rona's second choice of resource, and this is a CD-ROM of Maths Games. Maths Games 1 from Too Simple. Rona, tell us about this resource and again, why you like it.
I think this almost ought to come with a health warning. It's so addictive for people of all ages, but that makes it particularly appropriate for children with a whole range of special educational needs. We know that some children on the autistic spectrum, for instance, find it easier to relate to computers than they do to humans. You've got children who have attention difficulties, and here it really does keep you gripped to the screen. There are 6 games on this CD to teach the basic concepts of maths. This one, for instance, tries to get over this rather tricky issue of fractions, which a lot of children find quite hard. And here is a beautifully clear visual illustration.
Fantastic. Well, let's go back to Matthew at Milton Hall School, and he's going to show us another one of the games called Factoids before we rejoin Sally and her class.
The Maths Games 1 CD-ROM from Too Simple features 6 familiar arcade games, each with a mathematical twist. It can either be installed as a standalone or across your school network. Now you can see the games here. We're going to focus on Factoids, and I can start it up just by clicking on the menu here. Now you'll recognise the game here. It's based on the familiar asteroids, and the idea is there are number blocks that come past and you have to fire factors of that number at the block. And you can rotate your object using the arrow keys like this, and then you fire the number just by pressing the number button. Now if you're thinking you can just fire 1s and 2s, it's not that straightforward. You can't fire 1s, and there is a limited supply of all your other factors given by the little graph down here at the bottom. Your score is displayed in the top left and the number of lives you've got in the top right. There is an options screen, and this allows you to set the game speed, starting level, and you can also determine which factors come in at each level. So that's the resource in a nutshell. Let's go back to Sally now and see it in use. Sally, can you tell us a little bit about how you're using the games today?
Today we're actually working with a group of children who have individual education plans, and they're actually working on their IEP targets. So this particular girl is working on number bonds to 20, which is one of her targets to support her with her numeracy skills. This particular group of children have got special educational needs, yeah.
And what year group are we looking at here?
We're looking at Year 4. These are Year 4 children. It can be used like this with a group of children that have got specific targets, or it can be used in the classroom.
So you're finding it quite flexible?
Definitely, yeah. And with the new numeracy framework that's coming up and personalised learning, it's great that you can channel it into the children's needs, into their learning needs, the level that they're working at.
Indeed. Now you're on a different game here, aren't you? What's the idea of this one?
I've got to shoot out and get to make 12.
Oh, I see, right.
Yeah, easy.
You find it easy? Is it good fun?
Yeah.
Now, quite clearly, the children are really enjoying and getting into this resource. Do you feel they're actually getting something from this?
I think with some guidance, they do need guidance. I think sometimes that the actual fact that they're shooting at something, you know, they're enjoying doing that. But I think if you, with some direct questioning and some guidance, they realise what the purpose of the activity actually is.
Perfect. You've got the hang of this, haven't you? Do you feel that this resource could be used in mainstream schooling?
Oh, definitely. We will be using it throughout the school for all the children, not just for children with special educational needs. It actually covers the targets in the new mathematics framework that's coming into place, so it can be used for everybody, all children.
Rona, I love the look of this resource, but is it just a game? Are they really learning maths?
No, I don't think it is just a game. There are games that you play for game's sake. These are games most definitely with a purpose.
Right, OK. Well, Maria, what did you think? Games with a purpose?
Definitely, definitely. It was a big hit in the classroom, both in Year 6. I tried it in Year 6 and in Year 3, and not just on special needs children, on other children as well. And it didn't take them very long to master what they had to do, but at the same time they're actually learning either the number bonds or the factors or the fractions.
So the technology doesn't hold them back from really doing fast?
No, it helps.
Adrienne, what did you think?
I was really annoyed because I didn't want to stop. Funky platform. I was doing that for about half an hour. You know, apart from actually getting dexterity with organising where things go, I really had to think what number I had to choose to go across to actually make that number 13 or whatever it was.
Yeah, well, a very popular second resource again. Time now to move on to Rona's third choice of resource. And this is a CD-ROM again. Yes. It's called Behaviour Tracker from Surer Steps. Yes. Tell us about it, Rona. We've got some examples down here of what it sort of looks like in the end, but what does the resource do?
This is quite a new resource. It's a new company set up by a couple of educational psychologists who really thought about how to address this issue of behaviour in the classroom and in school in general. And they've come up with a library of 101 pictures, and you can pick out the pictures you want, and you can use these either as individual pictures to target particular behaviours you're trying to encourage, or you can run a sequence. So, for instance, lining up to go out to play, or how you behave on the playground. There's an example of a sequence there, and here there's an example of using the captions which you put in yourself if you wish to reinforce the message, and also a couple of them have a timer underneath, and you can add that in. You know, you will read a book quietly on your own for 5 minutes.
Well, Maria, is this a resource that you think you would find useful?
For it to be really effective, you need to spend a lot of time with a child, talking through the child about the sequence of events. So, you know, what would you need to do first? Which picture shall we choose? What do you think you would have to do next? It uses a lot of one-to-one time, but that's the way I think it would really work.
Adrienne, what are your thoughts?
It's the kind of resource that really does get people talking. And there's an example here. And I think you could use this with the whole class. Yes. And you could even have it on an interactive whiteboard.
Well, thank you all very much. Adrienne, you're staying with us to evaluate our secondary resources, but Maria and Rona, thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
And to recap, the 3 primary resources that we looked at are the Rapid programme from Heinemann, Maths Games 1 from Too Simple Software, and Behaviour Trackmaker from Surer Steps. Moving on to our secondary resources, we're going to be looking at a CD-ROM to help with times tables, a reading manual, and support materials for a range of subjects. I'm joined by Lorraine Peterson, Chief Executive of Nason and a former head teacher, Jane Allison, Senko at the Ravenscroft School in the London Borough of Barnet, joins Adrienne Jones on the panel. Well, Lorraine, welcome. Hello. And let's take a look at your first choice of resource. And this is a CD-ROM called What to Do When You Can't Learn the Times Tables.
That's correct.
It sounds pretty self-explanatory, but what really is it? What do you get and why do you like it?
OK, well, the reason why I chose this CD-ROM is because it gives a number of very good strategies for learning the times tables. And it breaks the times tables down into very small chunks and makes it very successful for the children to actually achieve at each level of times table. And it makes it very visual for the youngsters to be able to see. And the other good thing that I like is there's a voice activation module in there, so that the young people can record their voice and then listen to it back.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot to this resource. And let's find out a little bit more about it by going over to Matthew, who's at Shoeburyness High School in Essex.
Well, I found a quiet corner in the school and we're going to have a look at what to do when you can't learn the times tables. And I've got the main menu up here and you can see there's these different areas. I want to have a look at strategies.
When you can't remember the times tables facts, you can learn how to work them out.
Now, all of the screens have a voice prompt like that. And if we have a look at one of the times tables, we'll look at the 2 times tables, you'll notice that the screen is split into 2 halves. And on the left, you have a visual prompt to whatever's been said on the right. And as you cycle through the screens, the graphics will help pupils visually to learn their times tables. Well, if we go back to the main menu now, you've got some testing and review sections, but I want to show you the self-voice echo. Now this is interesting because it allows pupils to record them saying some of the times tables and then play it back. So they will be able to learn the times table by listening to their own voice. Well, I'm off now to see Kirsty England and 2 of her maths students on how they're using this resource.
That is, adding the same number 1 or more times. For example, 4 times 6 is the same as 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 24.
Hi Kirsty.
Hi.
If we can just talk about this for a little bit. How are you using the resource today?
We're using it on a tutorial with the 2 girls. They're having a bit of difficulty with their multiplication. So we started from the basics and now they're doing a little test which they seem to be really enjoying. Yeah.
Do you feel that there's enough interactivity with this resource?
I think it's a lot of listening for the children to keep their attention, and some of them with a lower attention span it's not so good. I find the voice quite boring and the pupils have actually said that it's quite monotonous.
So how might you improve this resource?
I would probably put some games on there, maybe a bit of music, a bit of sound there to get them a bit more motivated with the work. I like the way it gives a few different methods of the way that they can work the multiplication, because obviously the pupils aren't all working into the same way.
And do you feel that the resource is actually appropriate for Year 9 pupils that we're seeing?
Yes, yes, definitely with these girls it's definitely, yeah, it's working really well.
OK, well, what did you think, Jane? I mean, could you see this resource working in your school?
I thought it was going to be a lot more exciting. I'm not sure that parts of it were very clear, and I think if a child was working on this on their own, they might struggle in some parts. What I did like was the test at the end. I think children like to go through and self-check where they are. And I think for some children to go back and look at some of the strategies, especially the visual ones, in particular where they broke down the numbers and showed the rods. I thought that was very, very clear. I think that would work.
Adrienne, what did you make of the CD-ROM?
Looking at the text on there, it doesn't look particularly exciting. It's not very large. Actually, although you mentioned about the test, what I found is that I went for a 30-second test, but I have to clear the question mark first. Now, if I'm not that quick, which I wasn't to start off with, I have to clear the question mark, put in the answer, and then it times me out, and I've got all the answers wrong, whereas in fact I haven't got the answers wrong. I'm just short of time.
Now it's time to move on to Lorraine's second choice of resource, and this is the manual Toe by Toe. Lorraine, explain this resource to us.
Okay, well, Toe by Toe is a highly structured reading programme for those young people who have, in essence, failed at every other possible reading programme that they've been through. It is meant to be quite boring as it looks in terms of what's there, because of the nature of its structure and the way it does do things, not even step by step, but toe by toe. It's meant to be used every day for 20 minutes a day. And I think what it does do is it breaks down that age-related process of reading, because often what happens with at Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, a lot of the reading material they get, they seem to think is too young for them or babyish, or it's not appropriate for them, where this takes away that sort of process.
Now, it isn't a new resource.
No,
it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
It doesn't have an ICT component.
No.
That's what you get.
That's what you get.
I mean, an oldie but a goodie in your mind.
Well, yes, and the schools that we know through Nathan that use it have found it highly effective.
OK, well, let's now go back to Matthew at Shrewsbury Nest High School.
I have with me here the Toe by Toe book, and it's designed for use by a pupil with a learning coach. Now, all of the activities are double-page spreads. On the left-hand side, you've got a box for the coach with some instructions in it. On the right-hand side is the actual task for the pupil to work on. And moving on in the book, you'll see that there are some activities where the learner will read through different words and letters, and the learning coach will tick them off as they progress. The emphasis is on building up words from sound of individual and groups of letters, working towards more complex words and sentences. What I also want to show you is that there are regular handwriting activities which make a link between saying the word and writing it. Well, that's the book. I'm off now to see Hilary Gover and her pupil Sarah to see how they're getting on with the resource.
So do you remember the sounds? Look at the pictures to help you remember them. Good girl.
Sh. Sh. F.
Good girl. Right, now I'm going to do this again, but without the pictures.
K. X. E. F.
Okay, right, let me read through this and see what we've got to do. It says...
Hi Hilary, if I can just talk to you a little bit. This is obviously a one-to-one session.
Yes.
Do you find the book useful here?
At the moment I do, yes. It's quite structured, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we have to get 3 ticks before we can move on to the next exercise. I like the fact that you have to start at the beginning. You have to start with the letter sounds, so you don't miss out any building bricks. I like that it uses, I suppose, nonsense words and not real words, which forces my student to actually use the sounds and build up sounds. What I don't like is that you can't photocopy it. So, for example, you've got this here, which is pictures and the letters. I would have liked to photocopy that, blew it up, cut it up, and play games with it to reinforce the letter sounds with her.
Do you think it would be appropriate for any special needs pupil?
No, I don't, because it's too expensive. I would only use this for the occasional child where all the things I've put into place is not working.
So it might be something you fall back on maybe?
Yes, yes, I fall
method.
back on, yes. And like I said, we tried lots of things with you, Sarah, but I think we're going to try this now and see how we get on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Jane, what do you think?
What I like about it is the fact that teaching assistants or maybe sixth formers could work through very systematically with a younger student and probably be quite effective. And it's a very prescriptive format that they could follow. But there are 2 things that I think go against it for being used in secondary school, and one of those is the fact that there's that commitment of 20 minutes or half an hour a day, which has to be factored into the timetabling. It's very dry, and for a child that's come through Key Stage 2 and that's not been successful at reading, if that was presented to them in Year 7, Year 8 and maybe beyond, that could be a demotivator.
Adrienne?
One thing it does do, which I think could be fun, is make up apparent nonsense words. Frictipode was one of the nice ones that I liked. Syllables, or words which are broken down into syllables, and it's actually an interesting way of teaching, approaching word recognition and sounding out words that you don't know. So I think it has plus points in that sense.
Lorraine?
It could be seen to be very boring and laborious. What it does, however, do is, once they start moving forward and getting success, it would raise self-esteem.
OK, thank you all very much. We've now just got time to move on to Lorraine's third choice of resource, and this is learning materials in all these books that we've got down here at the front. Now, they cover a whole host of different topics, but I know that it's the science books that you'd like to talk about, Lorraine. Explain this one to us.
The reason why I chose these is because they are really well differentiated for young people at different levels. It means that everybody in the class is doing a similar piece of work, but at the level that's appropriate to them. And again, from a self-esteem point of view, it means that, you know, the group that can't actually cope with the worksheet that the rest are doing, they have got something that actually they can do.
Okay. Well, what did you make of this particular resource, Jane?
I like these. I think the font size is good for children with special educational needs. The diagrams are clear, and the box at the top of the pages pulls out the main teaching point. At the back of the books they have a glossary, which is very useful for a word bank for children to refer back to. And they have a selection of learning outcomes that the teacher can use.
Adrienne, what are your thoughts?
The book is crammed with information as well for teachers and their pupils. So you've got all the credentials for curriculum references all there. So a teacher would know that what is being followed within these books is actually along the right path.
Well, thank you all very much. Just to recap, the 3 secondary resources that we've looked at are What to Do When You Can't Learn the Times Tables, published by Marco Publishing Limited. Toe by Toe, published by K&H Cowling. And Support for Basic Science Unit 4 from Learning Materials Limited. For information on all the resources that we've discussed today, go to our website. It's www.teachers.tv/resource review, or email us resourcereview@teachers.tv. So a big thank you to our secondary SEN panel, to Lorraine and to Jane. And thanks to Adrienne, and not forgetting our primary panellists as well. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.